Crystal chandeliers hung from the towering ceiling of the Regal Crown Hotel, their light shimmering down onto the marble floor, creating a luxurious maze of soft, glittering reflections. Classical music played gently in the background. Glasses clinked. Guests smiled politely, as if they were all angels who had been taught how to bow from the moment they were born. Lana Rivers was definitely not one of them. She was in full panic mode. Her legs were shaky, her heart racing, palms slick with sweat, and her mind had only one goal: escape. The moment she stepped into the grand hall wearing a tight red dress, her hair in a soft updo, and a forced smile, she saw him. Braden Knox, her ex, the jerk who had shattered her trust in men and banks. He stood at the bar, his gaze scanning the crowd like a security camera. He hadn't seen her yet. A chill ran down Lana's spine. She took a step back, ready to turn around when, "Lana, you actually came?" Too late. He saw her. Like a reflex, Lana spun on her heel and bolted in the opposite direction. She ran not like someone at a high society party, but like a fugitive fleeing from the cops. Heads turned in surprise. Wine glasses wobbled. Her heels clacked loudly against the marble floor. "Must hide, fast." She darted her eyes around for shelter and spotted a long, white-clothed table tucked in a corner. Two men stood nearby, deep in conversation. One of them wore a black suit, tall and broad, his back facing her. Without thinking, Lana ducked and dove under the table, squeezing herself right between the legs of the tall man, holding her dress and biting her lip. She barely dared to breathe. Outside the linen veil, Braden was still scanning the room like a predator. "Dear God, please don't let anyone see me," she prayed. Then came a deep, ice-cold voice from directly above her head. "What exactly are you hunting for down there?" Lana froze. Slowly, she tilted her head up and found herself staring straight into a pair of steely gray eyes, looking directly down at her. No frown, no surprise. Just a look that said this kind of thing probably happened to him every week. She let out a weak laugh and awkwardly tried to wriggle out from under the table, not in the most graceful position, to say the least. I'm sorry, I was just checking the structural integrity of the table. I mean, I'm an interior designer. Occupational habit." The man didn't move. He just stared down at her with razor-sharp eyes. The guy next to him frowned and whispered, "Damien, what's going on?" Damien. The name rang in Lana's head like a fire alarm. Damien Cross, CEO of Cross Enterprises, host of the party. The man she was scheduled to meet tomorrow morning for a presentation on the new headquarters design. Lana felt like fainting on the spot. Damien glanced at his assistant and replied flatly, "It's nothing. Just a stray cat inspecting my table legs." Lana nearly jumped to her feet. "I'm not a cat. I'm a human being, and I'm terribly sorry. I'll just go now." She backed away, her hair a mess, cheeks on fire, dress crooked, and promptly tripped on a chair leg. Damien caught her wrist before she could fall. His hand was cold, hard like stone, but steady. They stood face to face. He was nearly a head taller than her, expression unreadable. Lana, meanwhile, had no idea where to look. She had just stuffed herself between a man's legs like a lunatic. "Thank you," she mumbled, yanking her hand back. "I'll be going now. I have a lot more tables to inspect." Damien raised an eyebrow. For the first time, the corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but no longer ice. "Good luck with your inspections." Lana turned and practically ran out of the area. Inside, she screamed, "Oh my God! Is there anything more humiliating in this world?" On the other side of the room, Damien kept watching her retreat, his gaze lingering. His assistant asked, "Who was that?" Damien took a sip of wine and said casually, "The first person in my life to crawl between my legs." You're watching Soul Stories, where every story whispers of love, healing, and hope. Let us know which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and be a part of our journey. Now, stay with us. The story is just beginning. On a sunny Monday morning, Lana Rivers stood in front of the towering glass building of Cross Enterprises, clutching her portfolio in one hand and a coconut milk mocha in the other, the only thing capable of keeping her conscious on a Monday. Deep breaths, Lana. Don't think about yesterday. Yesterday was a freak accident. No one remembers, no one filmed it, and today you're dressed appropriately. She walked into the grand lobby with fake confidence, silently swearing to herself that she would handle the headquarters design pitch professionally, politely, and under no circumstances would she crawl under anyone's table again. But fate, or more accurately, cruel coincidence, had other plans. When Lana was escorted to the 42nd floor executive conference room, she had no clue what was coming. Only when the door opened and she saw the man sitting at the head of the table in a crisp white shirt, twirling a fountain pen with that cold, unreadable gaze, did her heart drop like ice cream melting in the sun. Damien Cross. And Damien? He raised an eyebrow ever so slightly, his eyes scanning her from head to toe, pausing just a second too long on her red high heels, the same ones that nearly killed her last night. "Oh," he said in an even tone, "the under-the-table inspector from yesterday." Lana's face flushed red, but she stood tall. "Yes, today I'm inspecting the limits of client patience." Damien's assistant let out a faint chuckle, quickly silenced by a single glance from him. Damien folded his arms, leaning back in his chair. "My office is in need of creative design, not a circus performer." "Perfect," Lana replied with a professional smile. "I'm a designer, not a mood manager for CEOs." The room temperature seemed to drop. The assistant blinked. Damien, however, let out a faint chuckle so thin you might mistake it for irritation if you weren't paying attention. "All right, let's see your proposal. Hopefully it doesn't require me crawling under a table to evaluate." Lana nodded and opened her design folder. She presented clearly and concisely, tossing in just the right amount of dry humor, the kind that loosened the tension in the air, like a well-placed joke in a funeral home. "I recommend adding greenery to the reception area to create a welcoming atmosphere. Right now the space feels a bit like an emotional quarantine zone." Damien flipped through the designs, his expression unreadable as ever. But his eyes did pause occasionally, like on a window seat she'd added, with silver gray curtains and soft natural light. This seat wasn't in the original request. Number I added it because from that spot employees can rest their eyes for a minute without having to step out. I think everyone needs a place to escape their boss. "You often make changes outside the contract?" "Only when I feel not everyone excels at expressing care as well as they do at giving orders." Silence, but Lana knew she'd just played a bold hand. The meeting wrapped up. People filed out, leaving only Lana and Damien in the room. She gathered her drawings quickly, eager to flee, when his voice stopped her from behind. "Do you do that often?" She turned around. "Do what? Ruin my first impression with a potential client by crawling between his legs?" "Number that was a one-time special." Damien tilted his head, his expression not mocking, but almost curious. "I meant talking back." "I wasn't talking back," Lana shrugged. "I was offering perspective. If you're looking for someone who nods at everything, I'm not your girl." He stepped closer, closer than necessary for casual conversation. Lana didn't back away, but her eyes widened. The scent of mint and sandalwood drifted off him, making her swallow involuntarily. "I don't like people who are too obedient," Damien said slowly, "but I hate unprofessionalism." "Lucky for you," Lana beamed. "I've got just the right amount of both to confuse the hell out of you." This time Damien actually chuckled, a little more audible than before. "Let's see how you handle it. The project starts next week. I'll be supervising it directly." Lana blinked. "You personally supervising?" "I want to make sure I don't have to crawl under any tables to check your designs." As Lana stepped out of the room, she exhaled in relief, then lightly smacked her forehead. Why did I sass him? Why? And yet deep down, a small, undeniable part of her was already looking forward to the next encounter. By her third day working at Cross Enterprises, Lana Rivers had started becoming famous, not just for her design talent, but for her uncanny ability to tease the CEO and survive. Lana said Mr. Cross has a stare that cuts through fog. I laughed so hard I got the chills. She even nicknamed him the human freezer. And he heard it, just looked at her, and turned away. She's fearless. Lana beamed every time she stepped into the elevator. waving like she was on a game show. She cracked jokes during team meetings, talked to employees like old friends, and always had a line that lightened the mood. Meanwhile, Damian Cross remained a monolith of ice. He only appeared when necessary, gaze cold, voice steady like a soulless math formula. But lately, people had noticed him watching Lana just a second longer than usual. That morning, Lana was invited to a management team meeting for the first time. Damian himself would be attending her design pitch. She walked in holding the projector remote, grinned, and said, "Morning, everyone, and good morning to the walk-in freezer." A few people stifled their laughs. Damian looked up, his gaze not angry, just analyzing her like she was a strange life form. "Do you plan to start every presentation with a joke?" he asked. "Only when the guy at the head of the table looks like he needs a hug but doesn't know how to ask." One of the project managers cleared his throat, barely holding back a laugh. Lana clicked the remote. Her new design lit up the screen creative, welcoming, complete with an open collaboration area, a mini library, and a quiet break space for employees. "We can build a workspace that's not only efficient, but also human. Work takes up at least a third of people's lives, right?" Heads nodded. Damian said nothing, but Lana noticed him tapping a rhythm on the table, a habit she'd clocked. He did that when he was deep in thought. After the meeting, Lana turned to leave, only to nearly run into Damian, standing just outside the door. "Can I ask you something?" His voice was flat. "Only if it's not whether I plan to crawl under any more tables," she shot back. "Why did you include a short break space in the layout, even though it wasn't in the contract?" Lana shrugged. "Because I figured you would never do it for your employees. So, someone had to." Damian's gaze softened for just a second. He didn't respond immediately. Then came the remark. "Your confidence borders on delusional. Are you talking about me? Or are you just jealous I can make the office laugh while you make it freeze?" Damian stared at her for a long beat, then turned and walked away. Lana exhaled, then allowed herself a tiny grin. Something strange was definitely going on. But things only got stranger when Damian started appearing wherever she was outside of work hours. The next day at lunch, Lana went to her favorite cafe near the office, the one where she liked to sketch. She had just pulled out a chair when a familiar voice spoke. "Black coffee, low sugar." She turned, startled. Damian sat at the table beside hers, eyes on his laptop. "You come here often?" she asked, suspicious. "No." "Then why are you here?" "It's close to the office." "And close to me?" Damian glanced up, didn't answer. Just stared at her with those gray eyes like he was trying to read her mind. Lana gave a mock laugh. "Probably just a coincidence." "I don't believe in coincidences," he replied. "I do. Like the fact that you've worn a white shirt all week. Coincidence? Or closet shortage?" Damian looked down at his shirt. For the first time, he seemed just a little flustered, even if only for a split second. The next evening, Lana was walking in the park after work. The breeze was cool and she was doodling on a sketch pad when a tall shadow blocked her sunlight. "You again!" Damian stood there wearing a light gray shirt, holding a coffee cup. "I needed to think. It's quiet here. And I needed space without your X-ray judgmental stare." "Then maybe try a different park." Lana gave him a slow nod, turned away smiling despite herself. A few days later, back at the office, someone whispered, "Mr. Cross just asked me what Lana was having for lunch today." "No way!" Lana only shrugged, sipped her tea, and whispered with a smirk, "The iceberg is starting to melt." There was something off about the atmosphere at Cross Enterprises that morning. No one dared say it out loud, but from Damian's assistant to the front desk clerk, everyone could sense something simmering in the air, and at the center of the disturbance was the design department on the 20th floor, where Lana Rivers worked. It wasn't because of a new design submission. It wasn't even because Lana had cracked one joke too many, though that was always a possibility. It was because Damian Cross had summoned her alone to the 42nd floor. Lana pressed the elevator button, coffee in hand, her mind racing. Probably wants revisions on the layout. Or maybe he's finally sick of my jokes and wants to warn me. Or Maybe he wants to ask if I'm free this weekend to check more tables from underneath? She laughed out loud, then shook her head. Get it together, Lana. When the elevator doors slid open, Damien was already there waiting in the hallway. Same tall frame, white dress shirt, black slacks, hands in pockets, that signature icy stare. But something felt different today. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't talking to his assistant. He was just waiting. You called me up? Lana asked, tilting her head. Have lunch with me, Damien said plainly. What? I know a quiet Italian place, no interruptions, come with me. Uh, okay, but it's not a meeting, not work. You mean a date? Damien met her gaze directly. I want to go on a date with you. Silence. The entire hallway might as well have held its breath. Lana stared at him for a few seconds, then chuckled. Not a loud laugh, but a real one. Sorry, she said with a smile. I'm allergic to people who don't know how to smile. Damien didn't flinch. He didn't blush. But something shifted slightly in his eyes. I know emotions aren't my strong suit, but I'm serious. I know, and I'm serious too when I say I don't date people whose emotions I can't read. She gently pointed at his forehead. Right here, blank. No expressions, no signals. No happy, no sad, not even amused. I need someone who's alive. Damien looked at her like she was some kind of cryptic puzzle he couldn't quite decode. What do you want? A guy who tells jokes in elevators? I want someone who looks at me and laughs, not someone who frowns by default. Damien's fingers tightened slightly. I'm not that kind of man. And I'm not the kind of woman who dates just to decorate the empty seat at a fancy restaurant. She took half a step back. Thanks for the offer, but I think we're better off the way we are, me tossing, you catching. Fun dynamic. Damien said nothing more. Lana stepped into the elevator, turned back before the doors closed. But don't look sad, okay? If you look sad, I might feel guilty. The doors shut. Damien stood still. For a long time. That afternoon, no one said anything, but everyone could tell something had happened. Damien was colder than usual. Not the dangerous iceberg kind of cold, but a strange, unnerving stillness. No scolding, no corrections. He just sat in front of his laptop, silently tapping his fingers on the desk in a rhythm that felt almost mechanical. As for Lana, she wasn't as unfazed as she pretended to be. I turned him down, clearly, directly. So why is my heart still racing? She mentally scolded herself, but deep down she couldn't deny the truth. Damien Cross asking her out was monumental. Not because he was hot, though he was. Not because he was rich, very rich. But because he had stepped out of his comfort zone to say something personal. To her, the girl who once hid between his legs. That night, Lana received a message from an unknown number. I'm not good at showing emotions, but I'm learning. If you change your mind, there's still an empty seat next to me this Saturday. No name, no signature, but she knew who it was. She stared at the message for a long time. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then stopped. Finally, she locked her phone inside. Don't make me reconsider, Damien Cross. The weekend arrived quietly. At least for those who didn't have Braden reappear in their lives. For Lana Rivers, that name was a long scar no longer bleeding, but always aching when mentioned. Lana was standing at the checkout counter of the neighborhood supermarket, arms full of almond milk, cereal, markers, and double-sided tape essentials for the office model she was building for her upcoming presentation to Damien. She hummed softly, mind still busy figuring out how to warm up the workspace area with LED lighting. That's when she heard the voice behind her, familiar and slick, like a snake slithering. Still like cinnamon cereal, huh? Lana froze, no mistaking it. She turned and there he was, just like a bad dream come true. Braden, her ex, wearing a leather jacket, hair gelled to perfection, and that same look in his eyes as if he hadn't wrecked her life a year ago. I don't recall inviting you into the rest of my life, Lana said coldly. Braden smirked, placing a hand on the counter like they were old pals. You always had jokes. That's what I loved about you. I'm not joking. I'm paying to get out of here, and you're wasting my oxygen. Braden didn't give up. He followed her all the way to the parking lot. Come on, Lana, don't be like this. It was the past. Everyone makes mistakes. A mistake is once, 3 times, plus stealing my money? That's criminal. She snapped the seatbelt into place. I've changed. I've got a steady job now. I'm trying to start over. I just want a chance to talk. I don't have time for emotional drafts. Goodbye, Braden. She sped off, heart pounding not with fear but with anger and wariness. He was back. What did he really want? 2 days later, Braden was standing outside her office building. She spotted him from a distance and quickly ducked into a nearby cafe. Unfortunately, he spotted her too. Lana, just 5 minutes. She reached for her phone to call security, but Braden was faster, walking right up to her table and sitting down like it was a date. I don't remember making an appointment, Lana said through clenched teeth. Not even a second? Not even on my birthday, didn't you think about me? Oh, I thought about you. I thought about the day I discovered you forged my name on a bank loan. I was desperate. I needed help, but I've paid most of it back. I'm trying to make it right. Then go to church. Don't show up at my workplace. Braden stood up, his face hardening. You're seeing someone, aren't you? That CEO guy? Lana's hands clenched. That's none of your business. I know all about it. Damian Cross. I know guys like him. He doesn't love anyone he's not capable of that. I don't need your opinion on anyone, especially not from you. Braden's jaw tensed. He stepped closer, voice low. If you don't come back, you'll lose more than just a design pitch. Lana stared him down. Is that a threat? It's a fact. I have friends, investors, media people. I can make what you're building disappear. Try it. Let's see who disappears first. She stood and walked out, leaving him behind. But inside, she wasn't calm. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. On a golden autumn afternoon, with sunlight filtering through the thinning leaves outside Cross Enterprises, Lana Rivers, in a crisp white shirt dress and sneakers, hurried down the sidewalk, a folder tucked under her arm and a box of strawberry wafers in her hand. I just need 5 peaceful minutes to eat this cookie before I have to face Mr. I Don't Like Pink Cross, she muttered. Of course, the universe, as usual, either didn't hear her or chose to pretend it was deaf. At the corner near the bookstore Lana liked to browse during lunch breaks, Braden appeared like a bat from the shadows, unannounced, uninvited, and very much unwelcome. Lana, you've been dodging me all week. She froze, eyes still locked on the wafer box as if it might magically open a portal and help her escape. I already sent you a postcard from the island of Never Again. Didn't you get it? I'm serious, Lana. You know I never wanted things to end like that. Well, I definitely did. In fact, I'd throw a party if you finally disappeared. Braden stepped closer, his expression shifting, no longer pleading, but something more familiar. Control. I know you're seeing Cross. You really think he actually cares about you? You're just a distraction to him. Oh, like how I used to be your talking credit card. Braden grabbed her wrist, not violently, but tight enough that she stepped back. She tried to pull away, but he held on. And then, let go. A low, cool voice cut through the air behind her. Before Lana could even turn, Braden was shoved back, not harshly, but with quiet force. Damian Cross. Black shirt, no tie, hands in his pockets, expression devoid of any of the dry amusement Lana was used to. Braden sneered. Well, well, Cross. Heard you're into secondhand goods now? In one swift motion, Damian grabbed Braden by the collar, pulling him in so close their noses almost touched. His voice remained calm but sharp as silk-wrapped steel. I don't usually deal with trash, but if it keeps clinging to someone I care about, I take it out myself. Braden froze, and Lana, her soul froze. Someone I care about? Braden backed off, brushing off his coat, muttering, Fine, but she'll disappoint you, sooner or later. Maybe, Damian replied, eyes still on Lana, but at least she's never made me lose faith. Braden left. Lana stood still as a statue. Damien turned to her, his gaze softening slightly. You okay? I think, I just witnessed a CEO-style gentleman brawl. She gave a weak laugh. Thanks. No need. I just don't like seeing people cornered, especially you. That night, Lana went home, still smiling to herself like she'd just won the lottery. But her head throbbed, her nose tingled, her body ached. She placed the untouched wafers on the table, reached for her laptop, and sneezed. Once, then again, then a full-on remix session. No way. Her nose stuffed up, her head pounded, eyes burned. 5 minutes later, she touched her forehead. It was warm. Her whole body ached. She curled up on the couch under a thin blanket, looking like a cold sandwich stuffed with tissues in self-pity. At 8 p.m., her phone buzzed. Damien. I just sent the final scan of the layout. Tomorrow I'll... You're sick. What? You sound like you're talking through 3 blankets. You've got a fever. I'm fine. I've got meds, ginger tea, and a box of tissues that really understands me. What's your address? Wait. Click. 15 minutes later, the doorbell rang. When Lana opened it, Damien Cross stood there with a paper bag in hand, expression as stoic as ever. You haven't eaten, right? I don't know how to make congee, so I bought the instant kind and tried to cook it. You tried? First attempt might not taste like congee, but it's food. Lana stood frozen. You cooked for me? I thought I made that clear. 10 minutes later, they sat across from each other in her tiny kitchen. Lana ate spoonfuls of slightly burnt congee, while Damien quietly poured her some water. I didn't think the coldest man in the company would be the one making porridge at 9 p.m. You think I don't have feelings? I think you hide them better than a national gold reserve. Damien looked at her. His eyes softened a little. Emotions aren't something I'm good at, but I'm learning, bit by bit. Lana smiled, eyes watery from both the flu and something deeper. Well, you've made progress today. Big bonus point. Damien stayed until she fell asleep on the couch. Before leaving, he gently adjusted her blanket, fixed her pillow, and quietly stepped out. The soft glow of the living room light cast over his face, and for the first time, there was something subtle, something rare, a smile, almost fully formed. Streetlights streamed through the cafe's front windows, casting a pale golden hue across the stone steps outside. In that soft light stood Damien Cross motionless, fists clenched unconsciously inside his coat pockets. Just 10 meters away, Lana was laughing with a tall, slightly scruffy man, someone who looked familiar in a casually intimate way. The man reached out and ruffled her hair. Lana laughed so hard she leaned sideways into him, and then like a dagger to the fragile thread of someone's self-control, she wrapped her arms around him in a long, warm hug. Damien didn't move. He said nothing. He just stood there, silent and simmering. That night he didn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lana hugging that man. The next morning, Cross Enterprises, 8:12 a.m. It felt like someone had dumped a bucket of liquid nitrogen across the office. Employees walked silently, holding their breath like they were in a crime scene. Damien arrived 30 minutes early. No one dared ask why. No greetings, no smiles. Just a death glare aimed at his paperwork like he could set it on fire with sheer will. Within just the first 2 hours, one manager got scolded for choosing a childish font. A poor assistant cried after asking if he wanted coffee. Accounting called an emergency meeting even though no one summoned them. Something's up with Mr. Cross. Someone definitely pissed him off. Please, for the love of God, don't let Miss Lana come upstairs today. Of course, Lana did show up, carrying a box of homemade banana bread, whistling like she was walking through a lavender field. That evening, Damien sat alone in the conference room staring at the office model Lana had submitted. The door creaked open. She walked in, hair in a high ponytail, sleeves rolled up, bright as ever. I updated the layout, if you need anything else. Last night, Damien interrupted. Who was he? Lana paused. She slowly placed the documents on the table, then tilted her head. Who? The man you were with, outside the cafe. Oh, so you saw that? Damien didn't answer. His eyes narrowed. Lana crossed her arms, walking closer, eyes sparkling mischievously. You, in a black suit, under a streetlight, staring like a detective, catching his wife cheating, very dramatic, by the way. Damien's jaw tightened. I don't think this is funny. You're jealous, aren't you? He said nothing, but his ears were very slightly red. Oh my God, Lana beamed. I never thought I'd see this day. Damien Cross, jealous. Damien slowly stood. His voice was low and steady. I don't like seeing you smile like that at another man. He's my brother. What? The guy last night. Liam, my brother. He just graduated college. Damien blinked. His steely gaze turned. Vaguely glassy, like someone had rebooted his entire emotional system. Lana stepped closer. I didn't have to explain, but I kind of liked seeing you jealous. I said I wasn't. You're the classic CEO archetype, right? And yet you still get flustered seeing me laugh with someone else, she teased, inching closer. Lana, he moved toward her. She stopped, looking up. So, what exactly are you going to do about it? Damien looked at her for a long, quiet moment, and then he said, This. He leaned in. The kiss came with no warning, no setup, no words. But it was warm, gentle, and full of things he hadn't yet dared to say. Lana's eyes widened for a split second, then fluttered shut. Her fingers clutched the front of his shirt. It wasn't the kind of passionate, cinematic kiss you'd see on TV. It was the kind of kiss that shifted your heartbeat, that made the world go silent, that finally gave shape to everything unspoken between them. When they pulled apart, Lana caught her breath and smiled. If this is how you prove you're not jealous, I can live with that. Damien said just one thing, barely a whisper. Next time, don't smile at anyone else like that. The morning after their first kiss, the top floor of Cross Enterprises felt like spring had arrived. But only one person didn't realize that spring came from him. Damien Cross, the famously cold CEO known for an expressionless face that could intimidate legal departments, was sitting in his office, smiling. To himself, not a smirk, not a polite business nod, a real smile, soft as a breeze, warm as sunshine, and happening over and over again. He leaned on his hand, staring at the screen in front of him without reading a single word. Every so often, his fingers would brush his lips. The place Lana had kissed. She actually kissed me, he whispered, and smiled again. His assistant walked in, saw the scene, and nearly dropped her latte. Mr. Cross? What? He looked up, eyes suspiciously gentle. The assistant backed out slowly, face pale. Guys, he's smiling, and not because we closed a deal. I think he's been poisoned by love. Damien didn't understand what was happening to him. He lost focus during meetings. He didn't get mad when reports were formatted wrong. He didn't explode when a supplier delivered late. Instead, he found himself thinking, what's she doing right now? Did Lana have breakfast? Should I ask her to take a walk tonight? Every time he remembered the way she smiled after their kiss, his heart would thump light but real. So this is love? Lana didn't sleep that night either. Her thoughts were spinning between the kiss, Damien's soft gaze, and the rare tenderness he'd shown. Holy hell, I kissed the CEO, and he kissed me back. She laughed out loud, then sighed. She was happy, overflowing with it, but also afraid. Is he really serious? Or was it just a moment, a lonely man's fleeting affection? She didn't tell anyone. She poured it into her sketches, into the earbuds she wore while working, into the quiet glances she gave when no one was looking. Since that day, they started dating, though no one said the words aloud. Damien invited her to dinner with a wonderfully awkward text. 7 p.m., Italian place. Don't wear green. She replied, I'll wear purple polka dots if I want. You planning to blind people with your white shirt again? When they met, they still teased each other, still bickered, but their hands were always intertwined. The kisses stopped being surprises. They came naturally, like breathing, like a heartbeat. Damien wasn't great at saying sweet things, but his actions were adorably clumsy, secretly ordering her favorite cake, sending cat memes every morning, calling every night just to hear her complain. A week later, the whole company knew. It started at lunch when Damien personally walked to the design department to pick up Lana, hand in hand, then led her into the elevator. See? I told you they were dating. Honestly, if Damien's gonna fall for anyone, it had to be Lana. Cute and clever. Oh my God, he pulled out a chair for her in the meeting room. HR had to send out a formal email about maintaining workplace professionalism, but no one cared. Everyone knew Damien Cross was in love, deeply. That afternoon, Cross Enterprises felt quieter than usual. Lana had just stepped out of the project meeting room, arms full of rolled-up blueprints, face smudged from a tense editing session. She had no idea that down in the main lobby, a very powerful woman was waiting for her. "Excuse me, Miss Rivers?" The voice was low, smooth, and firm. Lana looked up and instantly straightened, as if someone had pulled her spine into alignment. The woman before her was elegantly dressed, with sharp features, a high bun, and eyes cold enough to see through glass. "Yes, I'm Lana. And you are?" The woman gave a small nod. "I'm Veronica Cross." Time stopped. Veronica Cross, Damien's mother, honorary executive director, the woman behind Cross Enterprises' ruthless discipline and legacy. And now here she stood facing Lana, unannounced, unmistakably intentional. "Do you have a few minutes? I'd like to speak privately." They sat in a quiet tea room on the 34th floor. 2 cups of steaming black tea were served. Veronica didn't touch hers. She examined Lana the way one might evaluate a mislabeled shipment, calm, critical, and thorough. "I'll get to the point," she began crisply. "I know you're involved with my son." Lana stiffened slightly but kept her polite smile. "Damien and I work together, Mrs. Cross." "You know that's not what I'm referring to." Veronica crossed her legs, hands folded neatly in her lap. "I've seen enough young, clever, fast-talking women try to attach themselves to powerful men. You're no different." Lana froze. Her heart tightened not from fear, but from the sting. "And what exactly do you think I'm after?" "Status," Veronica said bluntly. "You're a talented designer, I'll give you that. But talent isn't the same as stature. My family has standards. Damien has obligations." Lana looked down at her untouched tea, not in shame, but to collect herself. "And does Damien know about these obligations, Mrs. Cross?" Veronica raised an eyebrow slightly. "He's a smart man, but intelligence doesn't make one immune to illusions. Emotions, those weak things, make people forget who they are." She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. She set it on the table. "This is an invitation from the Blackwood family. Valerie, their daughter, just returned from Europe. Studied arts and business. Well matched. Perfect." Lana looked at the envelope like it was a sentencing notice already signed. Veronica continued, firm and poised. "You can't offer Damien what Valerie can. Influence, prestige, a fitting public image to represent Cross Enterprises." Lana gave a tight smile. "And what about love? What do you think about that?" Veronica exhaled softly, almost mockingly. "My dear, love is a naive concept reserved for novels and screenplays. In the real world, it comes after legacy, duty, and reputation." Lana stood up, her eyes still bright, but her voice dropped low and steady. "That's unfortunate, ma'am, because I'm not here to fight for Damien's heart. If it's something that needs to be won through calculation, but I won't let anyone decide I'm unworthy based solely on where I come from." Veronica's gaze narrowed. "I won't forbid you, but I trust you're smart enough to know your limits and to avoid damaging your own future or Damien's." That evening, at a small, quiet restaurant known only to close friends, Damien had reserved a table. Lana arrived a few minutes late, eyes distant. "Something happened?" he asked, his voice gentle. "No," she said, taking her seat. "Just ran into someone from the past." He looked at her closely. "Someone from the past? Or my mother?" Lana looked up, surprised. Damien gave a faint smile. "Just a guess. She's not exactly subtle." Lana sighed. "She doesn't like me, and she thinks I'm not good enough." Damien was silent for a moment, Then he reached for her hand. Lana, if you want to walk away, I won't stop you. But if it's because of her, then I want you to know. I'll stand by you. Lana's eyes softened. I'm not one to quit easily, but I need to know if you're willing to fight for me. He didn't say a word, but the gentle squeeze of her hand said enough. The next morning, Damien arrived at the office to find his mother already waiting in the side conference room. We need to talk, she said sharply. He stepped in, already sensing what was coming. Veronica placed a formal envelope in front of him. The Blackwoods have invited you to dinner. Valerie, their daughter, the one I mentioned. Tonight at 7. Damien didn't touch the envelope. He looked at her, voice calm but firm. I thought you weren't arranging dates anymore. I'm not forcing you. I'm scheduling options. You can refuse, but remember, Valerie is the right choice. Not just for you, but for the company, for Cross's future. Damien sat up straight. His tone didn't rise, but every word landed like a declaration. Mom, I'm in love with Lana. The air froze. Veronica's face twitched, eyes narrowing like she'd misheard. She doesn't belong in this world, Damien. You know that. He stood, picked up the envelope, and gently placed it back on the table. I know, and that's exactly why I need to stand beside her. Damien, I've spent years living for what's right, Mother, but I've never been happy. He walked out of the room. Veronica remained seated, hands clenched, gripping a kind of helplessness she had never known. Veronica Cross was not a woman who accepted defeat easily, especially not when the opponent was a young woman. From a different class, a different world, and most dangerously, someone who had captured her son's heart. After being firmly rejected in her direct confrontation, she knew words, commands, and reasonable arrangements no longer worked on Damien. So she turned to her final weapon, manipulated truth. 3 days later, Braden reappeared. Same greasy smile, same calculating eyes, but this time he wasn't there to beg or threaten. He came to play a role someone else had written for him. At a small interior design exhibition hosted by the local design association, Lana arrived with a few former colleagues. While she was mid-conversation, Braden slid in from behind, calling her name like it was a chance encounter. Lana, I just need to talk to you. She froze. What are you doing here? I told you we have nothing left to say. Pure coincidence, he lied. Can we talk? Just for a minute. It's the last time I'll ever ask. Still wary, Lana didn't want to cause a scene, so she stepped aside to a quieter corner. She didn't know a small hidden camera had been placed on a nearby lamppost, and inside a black car across the street, Veronica's personal assistant was recording every frame. That evening, Damien was reviewing documents when his phone buzzed. An anonymous email. Subject line, do you really think she loves you? He opened it. 2 photos. One from a distance, the other close up. Lana, with Braden, standing closely, her expression tense but not resisting. Damien frowned. Nothing intimate, nothing obvious. But Braden's presence alone was enough to make his chest tighten. A voice echoed in his head. Why is she meeting him again? He tried to dismiss it. But then, a second message arrived. This time, a 40-second video clip. In the clip, Braden was seen grabbing Lana's hand, pulling her into a hug, and then the video cut before anything else was shown. Damien felt a stone land in his chest. He wanted to believe his own eyes, but deep inside, something kept whispering, this isn't Lana. This isn't her. The next morning, Damien arrived at the office but didn't speak to Lana. She noticed immediately his eyes were colder, distant. He nodded politely, then walked into the boardroom. She stood there confused. Her chest felt heavy. That afternoon, a third message arrived. This time, a screenshot, a supposed conversation between Lana and Braden. Lana, he's easier to manipulate than I thought. Braden, getting used to being the CEO's girlfriend? Lana, no, gold digging takes patience. Damien closed his laptop, his forehead damp with sweat, his hands trembling. He knew technology could fake anything, but when the small doubts piled up, the mind began to bend. He said nothing to Lana all day. That night, she texted him, "You've been distant today. Is something wrong?" He typed, then deleted it. Typed again, I'm fine. Sent. She didn't reply. Maybe she felt it too. The next morning, Damien didn't come to their usual shared workspace. Lana went to find him. His assistant politely told her, "He's in back-to-back meetings." She returned to her desk. Her heart sank. That night, she stayed late at the design studio, alone, staring at the half-finished mock-up of Damien's office. A project she had poured heart and soul into, down to every last detail, to please him, to match his needs, to match her love. Her eyes welled with tears. She didn't know what was happening. But one thing was clear. Damien was pulling away, and he was doing it without a word. That morning, Lana walked into the Cross Enterprises lobby like she did every day, until she stepped into the elevator and noticed the looks. Some people stared. Some pretended to check their phones. Others whispered behind their hands and giggled. She frowned. That strange feeling grew sharper when HR's assistant sent her a discreet message. "You should see this before going upstairs." Lana opened the link. Dozens of images and chat screenshots posted to the company's internal social network. The headline stung like venom. CEO's gold-digging designer thought it was love, but it was a lie. Her fingers turned cold. Photos from the design expo cropped at just the right moment to make her look close to Braden. The same fake messages Damien had once received. The comments section was already boiling over. A few expressed doubt, but most talked about abuse of power, sleeping to climb the ladder, questioning her morals, her worth. Lana closed the page, took a deep breath. On the top floor, the CEO's office door remained closed. But Lana didn't need an appointment. She walked in. Damien stood with his back to the window, hands in his pockets. He didn't turn when he heard the door. "You saw it, didn't you?" she said. Silence. "I didn't do it. It's all fabricated." Still silence. Braden showed up out of nowhere. "I didn't ask to meet him, and I had no idea someone was recording us." Damien slowly turned around. His face was calm, too calm, and that terrified her more than any anger could. "I never said you did," he replied quietly. "But you didn't say I didn't," she whispered back, voice breaking. He looked at her for a few seconds, then turned his gaze away, avoiding her eyes, as if he couldn't face the truth or his own heart. "I understand now," Lana said, her voice hoarse. "You don't need to confirm anything. Your silence hurts more than any accusation ever could." Damien clenched his fist slightly, but said nothing. Lana looked at him one last time, not to hold on, but to let go. That afternoon, she submitted her resignation from the Cross Enterprises project. No explanation, no drama, just a short, formal document sealed with the dignity of a heart that had been quietly crushed. That evening, in her small apartment, Lana sat before the half-finished design model. Every line she had drawn, every shape she had sculpted, had been made with Damien in mind. To make him proud, to make him smile. She picked up her pen and scribbled one line across the page. "I don't need to be believed with evidence. I only needed to be trusted with the heart." The next morning, Damien walked into his office and saw a small model placed on his desk. No note, just the house of Lana's dreams. The one she once said she wanted to design for him. A cozy home, a small garden, wide windows, a shared workspace for two. On the back wall hung a miniature sketch, the one they had doodled together at their first cafe outing. On the wooden base, a piece of white thread was hand-stitched into a scrap of linen. Words sewn by hand. "If I must leave, I will leave in silence, because the one who once loved me now stays silent even louder." Damien stood still for a long time. He wanted to run after her, but his legs wouldn't move. His thoughts were chaos, his heart empty. He hadn't accused her, but he hadn't defended her either. And Lana, the girl who had turned his world upside down, was also the only one with enough pride to leave without looking back. You're watching Soul Stories exclusive to our channel. If you're still with us, drop a comment. We read and cherish them all. Subscribe to support more heartfelt, original stories. Thanks for being part of the Soul Stories family. That day, the sky was gray and heavy, mirroring Damien's mood. The CEO's office no longer glowed with warm light. Only stacks of hollow documents remained. It had been 1 week since Lana walked away. 1 week Damien had lived like a ghost. No morning texts, no silly banter, and no eyes that used to shrink his entire world into a single gaze. But the storm wasn't over yet. "You will get engaged." Veronica Cross's voice rang like a judge's gavel. She stood before Damien with a thick stack of documents, the proposed partnership contract between Cross Enterprises and the Blackwood Group. "Valerie is the one I chose. She has everything: education, status, and most importantly, no office romance scandal, like that Lana girl." Damien stared at his mother, his eyes darkening. "I don't love Valerie." "I didn't love your father when we married," Veronica said coldly, "but I built an empire with him. Love doesn't sustain logic. Valerie does." He remained seated. A long silence filled the room. Then she laid down a crisp envelope. "The inheritance clause. If you don't get engaged within 30 days, Cross Enterprises will be turned over to the board for a vote on your successor. And this time, I won't protect you." She left the documents and walked out, confident her son would yield, as he always had. But what she didn't know was, her son was no longer a man who bowed to bloodlines in boardrooms. Damien began to investigate. Quietly, he asked his cybersecurity team to trace the leaked footage of Lana, the metadata, sender IPs, internal server trails. What he had dismissed before as circumstantial now revealed a pattern. The video clips were sent from an IP address tied to his mother's assistant's laptop. The fake messages, created with AI software licensed under a corporate suite once purchased by Veronica Cross herself. The anonymous whistleblower behind the internal post, a lawyer previously employed by the Blackwood Group. Damien clenched his fists, not because he'd been tricked, but because his own mother was the one behind it. He stared at the miniature model Lana had left, the future home she once dreamed of building for them. "You trusted me," he whispered, "but I didn't have the courage to trust you. Not this time." This time he would not retreat. 2 days later, Damien held a press conference. No PR team, no legal filters, just a live stream broadcast straight from his office. The entire company tuned in. So did the press. So did the world. Standing tall in a simple gray suit, eyes calm but firm, Damien looked directly into the camera. "Good afternoon, I'm Damien Cross. These past few days there have been rumors about my work, personal life, and inheritance at Cross Enterprises. I will not defend. I will not blame. I will not drag anyone into a battle of words. I only want to say this." He held the gaze of the camera, his voice steady, measured, certain. "I love Lana Rivers. I doubted her, I hurt her, and I regret it deeply. But I have never and will never choose anyone else because of pressure, reputation, or power. If Cross cannot accept a successor who loves with his heart, then I no longer have a reason to stay. I hereby resign as CEO, and if losing my inheritance is the price I must pay to keep my dignity, I accept." Silence fell over the entire company. The media was stunned, the board shaken, but somewhere, in a small apartment, one woman sat, watching from her phone, tears streaming down her cheeks. Lana placed a hand on her chest. "You finally stood by me. In the end." The glass door swung open, and the soft chime above the handle rang out, blending with the gentle sunlight that filled the room. Lana Rivers Design Studio, a new name, not under any corporation, not beneath anyone's shadow. No more pressure, no more whispers, only dreams built by her own hands. Lana stood behind the front desk, leaning over to organize blueprints, her hair tied up high, eyes focused. In the natural light, she looked calm and strong. But inside, there was still a space no one else had filled. Footsteps sounded behind her. She turned around and froze. Damien Cross, the man who once shattered her world, was standing there. In a plain white shirt, no CEO aura, just a man, with regret in his eyes. "I didn't come to ask for forgiveness," Damien said, his voice low, rough, like it hadn't rested in days. Then why are you here? Lana asked, not coldly, but clearly. He stepped closer and pulled something from his coat pocket, a rolled-up sheet tied with a pale blue ribbon, her favorite color. I came to return something I should have given you a long time ago. He unfurled the paper and laid it out on the desk. It was a hand-drawn house blueprint, soft, detailed, sincere. Lana blinked in surprise. You drew this? Damien nodded. It's the first time I've held a pen for something other than a contract, to draw the place where I want you to be. He pointed at a small room labeled the Forgiveness Room. This house has no room for silent wars anymore, he said, but you can redesign it. Add a warm kitchen, a big window facing the world, as long as you're in it. Lana was quiet. Inside her, the walls began to crack. Damien slowly knelt in front of her, and for a second, the world held its breath. I was silent when I should have spoken. I looked away when you needed faith the most. I don't deserve to ask you to come back. He looked up straight into her eyes. There was no coldness left, only honesty, and the quiet kind of brokenness. But if there's even the smallest chance, if you haven't shut the last door on me, then I'll wait right here until you open it again. Lana looked at him. Half of her wanted to run into his arms. Half of her still feared the pain. Are you sure? She asked, voice trembling. I gave up Cross Enterprises. Gave up the name, the image, the future my mother laid out for me, just to keep the one thing left in my life that's real. He stood up, placed his hand over the blueprint. You! Lana cried, but this time not from pain. The tears came from everything she'd held in for so long. Finally let go. She stepped forward, placed her hand on the drawing beside his. I'll redesign this house, but not just with a forgiveness room. I'll add a hope room, a laughter room, a memory room, and a wide porch, big enough for us to sit together when we're old. Damien smiled. For the first time in days, they embraced, in the small sunlit room, where two people, who once lost each other, finally found their way home again. The grand opening of Lana Rivers' design studio fell on a gently sunlit afternoon. The 10th floor glass suite was elegantly minimal. White orchids, model boards lining the hallway, natural light spilling over the suspended designs, as if the dreams within them were quietly floating midair. Lana had been on her feet since morning, yet her face showed no trace of exhaustion. Her eyes gleamed more with each passing hour, like sunlight shining on someone who had weathered every storm and finally stood tall in the world she had built with her own hands. Midway through the event, a ripple of murmurs stirred the crowd. Damien Cross appeared. No one had expected him to show. Not after the scandal, his resignation, the live-streamed declaration, and the hand-drawn blueprint that shook the design world with its raw symbolism. But today, he wasn't the former CEO. He was simply a man, and the partner of the woman who owned the event. As Lana stepped out from behind the wooden divider to prepare her thank you speech, Damien walked onto the stage beside her. She blinked, startled. What are you doing? He didn't answer. He simply raised a hand, asking the crowd for silence. Then he turned to her and dropped to one knee. A collective gasp swept the room. Lana's eyes widened. You? Damien pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple platinum ring, engraved on the inside with one line. Room for forgiveness, always. He looked up, voice steady but filled with sincerity. Lana Rivers, you once taught me how to see a design with the heart, not just with the blueprint. Today, I'm not here with a 5-year plan or an investment strategy. I only have one proposal. I want to sign a lifetime contract with you. No exit clause, no expiration date, only one condition: to love you, trust you, and build everything with you from the ground up. Lana burst out laughing and crying at the same time. Are you sure? She teased through tears. I nag. I'll check every receipt, ask you about the trash, and I'm not great at being gentle. Damien stood up, still holding her hand. I need someone beside me to remind me. When I forget how to trust. The whole room erupted into applause. Lana nodded, tears running freely now, her smile brighter than ever. Then sign it, Mr. Cross. 1 month later. They held a small, cozy wedding, not in a castle, but in a glass house filled with blooming flowers, surrounded by loved ones, her parents, her younger brother, colleagues, and close friends. No grand show, no press coverage, just honesty. What moved Lana most was the unexpected appearance of Veronica Cross. She wore a deep blue dress, simple, elegant. She approached Lana slowly, her gaze soft and unwavering. Then, without a word, she held out her hand. "Hello, dear." Lana stood frozen. Veronica continued, "I once thought you were not the right one, but I was wrong. I forgot that no one is more worthy than the woman my son gave up the world for, just to keep." She gently squeezed Lana's hand. "I'm sorry, Lana." A tear rolled down from the eyes of a woman who had always held her pride like armor. Lana gripped her hand back, voice steady but full of warmth. "And I thank you for holding on to him, so that I'd have the chance to love him." The ceremony ended with a long, quiet embrace. Between the three of them, Lana, Damien, and his mother. No longer standing on opposite sides, but now a family.